Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel, and this is part 12 where we are going to add another level of intelligence to our AI application which is powered by RAG. And today I just choose the topic of relational database, which we know is the most common data source for such application. To start with, I just use the SQLite database because it is very light based and very easy to integrate. And in the next video, we are going to use the Postgres database where we are going to build our knowledge base into the Postgres, and then we're going to use in our RAG powered AI application. Right? So this is the flow which you can see on my screen. So the very first thing which we need to do is to just create a sample database in a SQLite tree with one table where we will be having some sample data. Then what we need, whenever we want to extract the data from database, we have to make a connection, and then we can just hit our select query, and then we can extract entire data from the table. Then rest of the process which we have been following so far is going to be same. So if you have been following this tutorial series, we have already integrated PDF-based data or the URL-based data, and this is the third flavor in our application where we are going to extract a relational database data, create our knowledge base, which is going to be create a context for our query for our AI application. So rest of the logic, if you will see, it's pretty much same: creating chunk, embedding, and load to the vector database. Extract a document with the vector similarity, apply a rewrite model to increase the accuracy of our context, then send it to the LLM to get the response. So same we're gonna see. So if you haven't watched my previous video, I would highly recommend you to watch my previous video because we are going to use most of the code which we have written in a previous video. And on right top, you can just get the link of my previous video. And along with that, all the previous 11 parts link you can find in a description. So let's get into the demo part. Okay, so what I'm going to do, this is the code which we have written in our previous part. So I'm just going to create a new Python file, and I'm going to name it as RAG_DB_PDF_URL. And then I'm just copy pasting the entire code base which we have written so far. Right? So our flow says the very first thing which we have to do, we have to set up our data for the SQLite. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to create another file, and I'm just call it as DB manager. Right? Here, if you are having any kind of experience on SQLite database, then you can understand this code very easily because all it is doing is just importing a SQLite tree, making a connection to the database, which is FAQ data. If this database is there or not there, then it's just get connected to it. Otherwise, it will create that. If you want to just watch how SQLite tree works, I have already published that, and I will just provide a link in my description, and you can also find that at the right top of your screen. So what we are doing, first we are making a connection to the SQLite DB. If it is present, then it's okay. It will make a connection. If it is not, then it is going to clear. Then creating a cursor, which is a standard way of interacting with the DBs. Then what we are doing, we are just creating a table. The structure is ID, and we have a question and answer. So we have only 3 columns in that, and table name is FAQs. And this is a sample data which we are going to create. Since ID is an auto-generated field, so now here you can see in this sample data, we have only 2 fields like question and answer. So it's kind of a tuple, and we have a list of tuples. And then we are using this execute many. And then this is the syntax in which what we have to do, we have to just create this parameterized query and feed in the data. And we are just feeding in the list so that, every row which we have in this list is going to be inserted. And then we are committing and close, right? So that's it. So now what we can do, let's first set up our DB. Let's run this. Okay, so this is done. Okay, so the next thing is, if we come back to our this main code, now what we need, first we need to extract the data, right? So what I'm going to do, the very first thing is we need this SQLite tree. Okay, so I'm just going to define that. The next thing which we need is, if you remember, we are using a LangChain for all kind of data loading. Here we are going to use this another library of LangChain, which is langchain.schema document, right? You will understand why we are doing that. Right? This is the program, this is the function which I have written, which is very straightforward. It's just copy paste the same logic which we have written for the PDF and URL. The only difference is like the library which we have, the class which we have imported, like document, that's the one which we are using, right? So if you remember, in the previous function, we just load the data. But here, before loading the data, we need to extract the data because data is in a DB. So what I'm doing, again, same concept, making a connection, right, to the DB part. DB part is nothing but is going to be our DB where our SQLite this is residing. So this is what we have created, right? So you can see on left page. Then creating a cursor, execute this select ID question answer from table, which makes sense. Table is FAQ. I initialized to that, but it can be passed at the runtime as well. Extracting all the records, which is going to give us a rows, just checking whether rows is empty or not. Then what we are doing, we are iterating through the rows, right? And we know that every row has 3 columns, ID, question, and answer. So we are passing it, right? Which is a Python context, Python syntax. Creating a content. Here, if you just see, we are simply creating a simple string. So what we have, Q, colon, question, then new line, answer, and right. If you want, we can quickly print this out so that you can understand how the data will look like. Okay. Now we are creating a metadata. This is, I just added because now we have 3 different flavor. Like we have PDF, we have URL, and we have SQLite database, right? So we want to segregate, we want to filter the data at the time when we are just responding to user query. So this is very important to have a metadata so that we can just filter out precise records from the exact source, right? Now, this is where I am using this document. This is the same library which LangChain provides us, and this required page, content, and metadata. So metadata which we have created, content is the simple string which you have to fill in here. And then we are just appending that whatever output document is going to give us, we are appending to the docs, which is a standard way through which we are so far, just creating our chunks, right? Docs and chunks. Docs, and then we have splitter and chunks. Once we have docs, the logic is same. We are first splitting it based on the chunk size and the chunk overlap, and then we are creating a split. So we are just splitting that. Okay. Now, what we are doing, this is a very straightforward thing. We are just cleaning up the index because we know that we get a lot of noise. So we just wanted to avoid that. Creating an embedding, same, and just storing the data into the vector database. This logic is good, right? Same logic here. We just need a full text. So again, we are just converting that into this, the simple text. Basically, we are just entering to the docs and just creating, the simple text, which we are going to feed into our function, summary creator function, which just called to the LLM with this full text with just a proper prompt where we are asking, okay, can you just provide me a summary for the full text? And same thing we are doing for the suggestion. These are the 2 different functions where we call LLMs to provide a summary as well as the 5 best question which can be answered with the data which we are fetching from the database. And then rest of the thing looks good. We are just returning final status, summary, and suggested. So we are returning 3 values accepting 2, right? So this is what the backend code looks like. So now we have to write a UI, right? UI is again going to follow the same standard and same structure. So we are creating a new tab. So I'm just copying here. Right, so SQLite ingestion markdown is upload your SQLite DB file. Okay, now we have 2 inputs. So I'm creating a SQLite file and table name. Here, what we are doing is, since it's a SQLite database, so we are just feeding the complete, file here because it's an in-memory database. It's not very big. But in the next video, we're gonna understand rather than feeding a complete database, we are going to make a connection to the database and then we are going to extract the data. Then we have a table name. Right, so this is where the table name, we have to feed in the table name, like which table we want to extract the name. Right, the same, rest of the stuff looks same. We created a button, then we have 3 output field with the text, and then we are just creating a click event handler here, where we are saying, okay, which function we want to call? We want to call a new function which we created, which is an ingest SQLite data to PineCone or vector DB, whatever name we call it. Then we have 2 inputs and 3 outputs, right? So this looks good. And if everything is correct, then we should be having working code. Cool. So far everything looks good. Okay, so now this application looks good. So we have PDF, URL, and then we have a SQLite injection. Here we can just feed in the file. Where we have our code, we have our code in reg app, and this is the database. I'm just copying it, Then I'm saying which table. So which table we need to get into FAQs, right? Processing it, come back to our server. We can see this data, the content which we have printed out, right? This is the content it looks like because we have this question and answer where we have a question and then a new line and then we have answer. So this is our complete content, right? Okay, so this is a document which we have created. Okay, now the summary seems to be created. So you can see the logic here. First, just make the connection to the index, clear that up, created an embedding, ingested a 40 text chunk. So basically we have 40 text, so 20 for question, 20 for answer. Then we are just making a connection to LLM, which is generating a summary. Then we are again making a connection to the LLM with the complete content of DB, creating a 5 best suggestions. If I come back here, now you can see the status. The processing status is ingested 40 text chunk, which makes sense because we have 20 questions, 20 answer in our sample data. Generated summary, it just created a summary, and then these are the 5 best questions which we can ask based on the content which we have extracted. What payment methods are accepted, right? So let's copy this, come back here and ask question, and ask this question and see what we get. Okay, come back here. Let's make the connection to the LLM. Generated answer. Okay. So now we can see here what it is. Okay, so these are the 3 contexts which it gets. What payment methods are accepted, which is pretty much same like matching with this seems to be the highest score. Like we accept credit card, PayPal, and Apple. What payment methods are accepted? Again, same. Do you offer gift card? Yes. Okay. So these are the options through which it can make the payment, right? So now the answer looks good. So now we are seeing a very precise answer depending upon what kind of data we have. So basically we have made our application intelligent based on the data which we have in our database, right? So this is how we can add the SQLite database integration with our AI application, which is powered by AI. In our next video, we are going to include another flavor, which is going to be either API based or the Postgres database, depending upon what kind of response I get from the viewers, right? So that's it from my side for this video. If you really like this video, give a thumbs up and just hit a notification bell so that you can just get notified whenever my next video will be published, right? So if you feel this video can help your friends, colleagues, and group, please feel free to share with them. And if you haven't subscribed for my video, I would ask you to just subscribe for my channel as well. And as always, thanks for watching this. Stay healthy and keep learning new things.